The question is that Part 1A stand part.
Mr Chair.
Claire Curran.
Mr Chair, I'm pleased to take a call on Part 1A of this bill and signal that the Labour Party is putting up 3 amendments to this part of the bill, and I'm going to briefly speak to them and then hope to get a call on each of these because they're all very significant. The first one at Clause 23B, Clause 23B brackets 3, Clause 23C and Clause 23H addresses the issue of ministerial responsibility and the ability of the minister to take control of telecom structural separations arrangements on his own without redress to public consultation or a requirement to take advice around those structural arrangements. Instead, as the bill as it stands allows the minister to essentially make his own decisions and make his mind up without recourse to anybody, which isn't really much of a surprise when you think of the modus operandi of this minister in making decisions generally. It's the trust me, I know what I'm doing approach, and any criticism is irrelevant. So that's a fairly significant amendment. The second amendment that the Labour Party is putting up to Part 1A is at Clause 23ZE, which is around the significant issue of what happens when telecom structurally separates, what happens to the proceedings that have already been brought around telecom and proceedings that may be brought around telecom between now and that structural separation. There is nothing in the bill that actually guarantees that parties who take legal proceedings against telecom for any breach of the current operational separation undertakings during the period they've been enforced will actually be able to have those proceedings seen through. And given, as my colleague Trevor Mallard has raised the sheer number of breaches and anti-competitive behaviour for which telecom has been held to account for in recent years, this is a significant issue, and there is one currently underway at the moment in terms of a breach, and there is no guarantee under this legislation that that actually can be seen through to its conclusion. So that amendment is quite important as well. And the third amendment to Part 1A of the Act is, as again my colleague Trevor Mallard highlighted before when he mistakenly thought that Part 1A was Part 1, was around the was for the penalties for breaching a number of provisions in this Act around the approved asset allocation plan, around the conditions of the plan, and taking them to a significant penalty of up to $100 million rather than from $10 million. And there are some very good reasons for this, and no doubt more of my colleagues will address these issues as we go through Part 1A. Given the sheer number of breaches that have occurred by telecom, given the stakes that are involved in the sheer amount of taxpayers' money that's being put into the broadband scheme, and given the fact that telecom has been handed a monopoly by this government in running out this fibre scheme with very few controls, with much of the arrangements being undertaken through contractual arrangements that won't be able to have public scrutiny, where the Commerce Commission is being held at arm's length and held away from regulation in this area, where many of these issues won't be able to be addressed until 2019, where the public isn't being guaranteed that they will be getting fibre delivered to their homes until perhaps as late as 2019 and perhaps even later. And so there are a number of issues that require breaches of process undertaken during this arrangement, where Telecom actually gets to feel the financial pain of not meeting the obligations that it's supposed to meet.
Mr. Chairman.
I call the Honourable Trevor